Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be talking about the new toon, Willie. Now before we get into it, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content and information. So Willie is a new character that's entering the game. As a 5-star, he has 45 AP, which is very fast. His rush does 300% damage to a line of enemies. Those enemies get 50% slow, 50% heal reduction, and daze for 2 turns. So if he applies this rush to a line of enemies, they will not be doing much. They can't heal completely, they can't rush as fast as before, and then they're also dazed, meaning they can't use their active skills. He also has the specialist skill Confounding, meaning whenever he gets a critical hit, that enemy will be confused for a single turn. So this is a controlling specialist ability. I like it myself. I find it useful on Mr. Jones, for example. So it'll be interesting to see how Willie can handle it. As a 6-star toon, Willie's AP increases to 66 AP, so it's still pretty fast. He still deals 300% damage to a line of enemies, a 75% heal reduction, 50% slow, and then daze for 2 turns. So the only thing that increases on Willie is his heal reduction goes up by 25%. He still has the same specialist skill, and his stats overall are pretty balanced. When we take a look at his active skill, Infection and Crit Up, so it's a turn 1 active skill, and up to 2 enemies get 15% infection for 3 turns, and this character gets 100% crit for 2 turns. So the 15% infection is pretty low. The toons infected would just need to heal 15% of their HP in order to clear the infection. But against some teams that don't have any healers, this can be really effective, especially because Willie's Rush applies 75% heal reduction, meaning the enemies are getting a significantly decreased amount of HP if they do have a healing rush or a healing active skill or a healing weapon in play. And the plus 100 crit does not mean 100% chance at a critical hit, but it does increase his crit chance very high, so basically every attack after he uses this for the allotment of turns, so for the 2 turns, he will probably get a critical hit, meaning he will be able to confound the enemy. As a green toon or a strong toon, he can also carry a stun weapon, which is pretty useful because stunning the enemy is one of the most effective ways at stopping them from doing any action. Now, when we move on to Willie as an S-class, we see that he retains his rush, which is pretty typical, as I've mentioned multiple times actually in other videos, how new S-classes are about the exact same as their 6-star version. There's very little that changes about them, excluding their stats. So Willie still has pretty balanced stats. His attack is slightly lower than his defense and HP, but overall, it lets you kind of choose the way you want to roll with Willie. If you want to go more defensive, you can absolutely add a defensive weapon as well as mods. Or if you want to go offensive, it's very easy to go the other direction. Now, Willie has something very unique happen to him. His active skill now infects 4 enemies at 15% infection. So the reason why this part is so good is that if the enemy's team does not have any healers at all, this 15% infection, however small it is, will end up wiping out 4/5 of a team on the 3rd turn because this infection starts on turn 1. So unless someone has an Angel or Mercer lead, you're probably getting this active skill off on the 1st turn. If used on defense, he would still be very effective because not many people run healers on attack. Now, the toon that I would pair up with Willie is Wangfa, because Wangfa as an S-class has a turn 2 active skill where 5 enemies get 100% heal reduction for 3 turns, while he also gains plus 60% AP. But we're focusing on the 100% heal reduction. If you end up using Willie's active skill on the 1st turn, it means you won't be able to gain any AP on that turn. Unless you have unnatural AP gains, it'll be very difficult to get him to rush fast enough to apply that 75% heal reduction, and again, it's only 75%, versus Wangfa being able to apply 100%. I'm not saying that you need to use Wangfa as a leader. I think it could be effective on an attacking team to use him as a leader because tough and strong teammates get a huge bonus to AP when attacking at the beginning of each wave, and up to 5 enemies get crosshairs for 4 turns. Meaning, The 3-turn infection by Willie would fall underneath these 4 turns. So 4 enemies, when they die from infection, they'll be decapped right away, which can be pretty useful. I feel like you could actually make an auto team with Wangfa and with Willie. It would be difficult, but I think there's a way to manage it. Another toon that I would consider actually using is Angel. So her lead skill is pretty useful. So if you didn't want to go with the crosshairs and the AP, you could do a more defensive-like team because your team kind of just needs to out-survive the opponent as well as control them, because if they're not allowed to recover from the infection, then they're going to die in the 3rd turn, while 4 of them will, which is a very effective active skill. But if paired with a toon like Angel, you might actually get to use her rush. So trauma is very specific, where a toon has to recover from a penalty but do it unnaturally, meaning it's not because the number of turns is up on the penalty, but because someone like Zach rushed and cleared all penalties. So trauma can apply a flat amount of damage. Off of Angel, that flat amount of damage is 3,000 damage, which is a huge amount, especially because it stacks. And trauma actually stacks in 2 different ways, meaning the actual amount of trauma can stack. So if Angel was able to rush twice within those 3 turns, then enemy toons would have 6,000 trauma on them. And the other way it stacks is if an enemy has burn, bleed, maim, and 100% heal reduction or any heal reduction on them and recovers from all of them, under 3,000 trauma, that would be 12,000 immediate damage. Angel also has a very useful active skill, the exhaust ability. So if any toons gain unnatural AP while under the influence of exhaust and don't have a maim resist mod or an exhaust resist mod, for every 10% of unnatural AP that they gain, they will be inflicted with 500 maim damage immediately. So far I do like the idea of Willie. It'll be interesting to see how he actually plays out, because 15% HP to recover isn't very much, but if you have a team where there's a lot of control on it, so you're not looking to rush and do a lot of damage, but you're just trying to outlast the opponent by using different control factors. Like Cole is a great example. His active skill can lower the opponent's attacking power by 50% to 3 enemies, while also taunting them. So this gives you an advantage because you're taking control of what the enemy's doing. There's of course Angel. So as a lead, you get a defensive buff and you daze the enemy for a single turn. So that can help you stop Dr. Stevens at the very start if he's on a defensive team. It also stops other turn 1 active skills. And then of course her exhaust ability, which would also help control the enemy. We're looking at Ivanova here. Her active skill has focus to the whole team on the 2nd turn, which as I've mentioned before is really effective. We have Wangfa, who as an S-class has that 100% heal reduction, which is really effective so that the opponent can't actually heal themselves. So we have the trauma ability. We have our whole team focus because of Ivanova. Ivanova is actually another trauma toon, and as I've mentioned, you can stack trauma with trauma abilities as well as stacking different bleed, burn, maim, defense down, attack down, and so on. And Wangfa actually brings a lot to the table in that manner as well. His rush can apply hemo bleed as well as normal bleed, and then also crosshairs on his rush. Basically, if Wangfa ends up rushing and you apply trauma to the enemy, if the enemy tries to recover from all of those abilities, there is going to be a high chance of them actually dying, because Angel can apply trauma to 3 enemies and it's 3,000. Ivanova applies trauma to a line of 2,000 and then also defense down. We have Wangfa's bleed, hemo bleed, crosshairs. We have Cole's attack down as well as his taunt. And then of course we have Willie in the last spot. So there's just so many different abilities that are, or penalties, that would be affecting the opponent's team, whether it's an offensive team or a defensive team. So long as you're able to outlast the opponent as well as control them to prevent any of that healing, well, really Wangfa handles the healing, but make sure that they don't actually kill your team, you would have a fair chance at just outlasting them with, relatively speaking, some free-to-play toons. Like we could take out, say, Cole or even Ivanova if you don't need the focus, and add in a command toon for a little bit more control. But overall, all of these toons are fairly accessible, and Willie would really be the only promo toon that would be in this team. So I think there's a decent chance of running a team similar to this. I think Wangfa is definitely a toon you want to pair with Willie, just because of that 100% heal reduction being earlier than Wangfa's rush. And if you can get Willie rushing, he can apply slow as well as daze, which prevents rushes and active skills, so it's kind of an all-encompassing team or team build that you could do, where you really limit what the opponent has control over. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. I hope you found it to be informative.